Hello everyone, and today we're going to be making this sound. And that is made from an original massive patch, which sounds by itself without any effects like this. Which is pretty dull, but it's still pretty cool. But before we do anything else, I'm going to show you the original massive patch, which is this one. And this is kind of it's made like any other sound I do with, well, lots of the other sounds I do with one oscillator being modulated with some phase modulation by another one, and then over a double notch and loads of sine shapers. That's what I usually do. Call me boring. But I'm just going to take you quickly through this one, and then we can get started on all the fun effects and everything. So, oscillator 1 is acid. Spectrum, your pitch is at 24, wavetable position at 2 o'clock, intensity just below halfway, and here put your amp all the way down. Oscillator 2, make it AI. Keep it on spectrum, pitch at minus 24, wavetable position all the way up, as well as your intensity all the way up, and again put your amp all the way down. Oscillator 3 is chrome. This time have it on bend minus plus. Have your wavetable position all the way up, your intensity at 9 o'clock, and your amp all the way down. For this one, have your pitch at minus 12. Then for your modulation oscillator, you're going to have some ring mod on 2. Leave your amount at halfway, just a little bit below. For your phase, put it on 1 and have it all the way up. Position, put it on 1 and have it all the way down. And filter FM we're going to do later, and you're going to put it on 1. But there's nothing to put it on yet, so wait a moment. And finally for it, you're going to have it at minus 24. So those are your oscillators done. Now for the feedback, turn it on and have the amount all the way down to be turned up later. Then for your insert 1, have it as a sine shaper as usual. Put your dry wet at 10 to 11 o'clock and your drive at 2 o'clock. Have your insert 2 as a sine shaper. Drive in, the dry wet in the same place at 10 o'clock, and your drive this time put it just below halfway. For your filters, first of all, put your kind of like mixing, I suppose. Put it to serial all the way up, and put your mix to the right slider all the way down to mix 2. This means it will run through one and then through the other. For filter 1, have your type as double notch, and put your cutoff just a tad below nothing, so 8 o'clock. Middle one you can leave alone, and resonance put it at 10 o'clock / 11 o'clock. Then for filter 2, you're going to set it to band reject, my other favourite. Put your cutoff to 3 o'clock, just below that. Bandwidth put it to 10 o'clock, and resonance put it just below halfway. And that's it for the filters. What you can do now is you can go into your effects. So effects slot 1 is a classic tube. For this one, put your dry wet at 11 o'clock and your drive at 1 o'clock. Effects 2, as usual, is a dimension expander. Put your dry wet halfway and your size a tiny bit below nothing. And next you're going to have your EQ. Make sure you turn it on. Put your dry wet, your high shelf in fact, at 10 o'clock and your low shelf just a bit below halfway. Now put your boost all the way down and put your frequency at just a bit above 9 o'clock. So that's all the basics over with. What you're now going to do is go into OSC and check your restart via gate. This is just going to clean up the sound a bit, and it will just sound a bit more crisp. So all you need to do to it after you check that box is move your modulation oscillator up just a tiny bit, like 1 decimal notch along. And that's very picky, I know, but it's important, promise. And then leave these two alone, they're irrelevant really. Voicing, only one voice, mono rotate and legato triller, and that means trill stuff, not that you really need to. Nothing on any of these because there's only one voice anyway. Routing, or routing. Make sure it looks like this with your insert 2 before the filter, before filter 1, and your insert 1 directly after it. And then just for safety's sake, make sure all your lines look the same as this. And yeah. So that's all that. Now it's time to do some modulation stuff. And firstly, we're going to have the performer because that's the most important bit of modulation. And what you're going to do to start with is go on a load curve and get this one here, this exponential upward one. Stick it in the first slot and then drag along and max out everything on from there. All I did on that was put down the curve so it restarts where it ends and everything. That's not that important though because you'll never actually reach the end. And then go off load curve, set your rate to just below halfway, and leave sync alone obviously, but check restart. And that's all the settings for the performer. Now we've done that, you can start assigning it to stuff. So put it onto the AI wavetable position and drag it back to 10 o'clock. Now this is where it's going to get a bit awkward because as you know your amps at the moment are all the way down. So for the sake of simplicity, turn it up to halfway, okay? Now put your 7 performer on the amp and turn it down to 10 o'clock, and once it's there, drag it all the way down again. It sounds ridiculous, but it should make sense in a moment. Next, get your 7 performer, put it on your Chrome wavetable position, and drag it back to halfway. Okay, now for the modulation oscillator. Ring mod is going to be done by an LFO later. Phase, leave it halfway. Position though, get your 7 performer, stick it on and put it all the way up. And next, the filter FM, we didn't go over this since we did the filters, so make sure it's put on 1 and the amount's all the way down. Now get your performer, stick it on that filter so it goes up to a quarter of the way up, so 9 o'clock. And then all you need to do is stick it on your feedback and put it up just a little bit to add some colour. Your dry wet on your first shine shaper, put it all the way up. And on your second shine shaper, the dry wet, and put it up to 3 o'clock. Now we're going to hop over to the filters. So firstly the double notch filter, filter 1. Put it on to that and drag up so it's halfway. So below the O of cutoff. And then get it again, put it onto your band reject cutoff. This time drag it down to 10 o'clock. And also put it on your bandwidth. And then drag it up to 2 o'clock. Only thing to do on the filters now is put it onto the mix 1, mix 2 thing just here. And drag it up to 3 notches below the midpoint. And this stops it sounding weak, so if I can demonstrate. And then with it, like how I want it. It just gives it, the bandwidth takes out quite a lot of frequencies, and it's just best if they're not all there when you get to the main sound. Okay, effect slot 1 is the classic tube, and put your performer on the dry wet. Then drag it up to 1 o'clock. Nothing on the dimension expander. EQ, put your performer on the boost. And here, put it up so it's 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock-ish. Put it on the frequency and drag it up so it's 2 to 3 o'clock. And also on the high shelf, so it goes up to 1 o'clock. Once you've done all that, it's time to do some macros. So macro 1 is going to be put on the amp of your performer. So bring your amp all the way down, and then with your performer, drag it so it goes all the way up. And all this does is give it kind of an extra control, which we'll be using later. And then also you're going to put your macro 1 onto the amp of all your 3 oscillators. So now they should already be down. If they're not, turn them down now. And then what you can do is you can drag them for the first one all the way up. For the second one, you can drag it up to 1 o'clock. And for the third one, you can drag it up to 11 o'clock. And that's macro 1. Macro 2 is just on the speed, and This is on perform, of course, and that goes onto the rate, and from where it is, about halfway, drag it up so it's about 2 o'clock. Finally, for macro 3, it's the pitch one, and that goes onto all 4 of your oscillators, that's including modulation, and then all go up to 24. So all of them to 24. Now the last thing I'm going to go through before I quit this and move on to the other cool stuff is the LFO. And this doesn't do much, you might as well just turn it off really, but I'm going to go through it anyway, just in case it does make a huge difference, which I haven't been paying attention to. So, get your LFO, sync it and restart it, and put your rate to 1/1. Then get your type and put it onto that sawtooth, the downward curve. Then what you can do is get your 5 LFO, assign it to your double notch cutoff, and drag it up just a tiny bit. Do the same on the cutoff of the band reject, and put it up just a tiny bit. And then go on to the Modulation Oscillator ring mod, which should be set to 2, and put it onto the RM and drag it up to so the green bit goes up to 2 o'clock. So it should look like that. And that, I believe, is everything we need to do within Massive. I would have forgotten something, so we'll probably be back in a few minutes to change something. Okay, now I'll get onto the effects, and we're going to use all 5 of our effect slots here within GarageBand, that is. So your first effect slot is going to be the sausage Fattener, and the colour is going to be set to about, well actually you can set it anywhere because we're actually going to be modulating it with some automation later. But the important thing here is the fatness, and that's going to be set to 8%. So that not only makes it louder, but it just fattens it up a bit. Next thing is something called Tremolo, and this comes as a free pack from Melda, I think it's called, which you can get here. Yeah, included in the M3 Effects bundle. Download that, and you get everything we're going to need for this sound. You get everything I'm going to have as long as you've got. Yeah. Anyway, but for this one, turn on your sync, put it to 1/16 and triplets, and that's just gonna that's just the speed kind of set, so it's synced to the beat, which is very important. Then set your depth to about 72%, and that just stops it from being so drastic that you can't hear actually any of the sound. And now this is going to get a bit complicated here, because the shape of the wave is 14% sine square and 86% sine. And then if you can see the wave changes as you move along, yeah. So it's 14% sine square and 80. Let's get to there again. So that's where we were. But then what we did, we dragged into about 40% on this custom shape, and the custom shape looks like this. So just imitate the shape of that. Yeah. And then what you can do, click OK, and then put that to 41%, and that just mixes in some of your own shape into the sound. And the only reason I did that is just because that's the sound I wanted on it, and that's the way I liked it, because it sounded good like that. So that's the way we had it. And that's all you need for the tremolo. The next thing is this frequency shifter, and in Massive, you might remember, you also have a frequency shifter. It's there, frequency shifter. But this one hasn't just got 2 dials, it's got too many. So you've got your dry wet, which you're going to put at 36.2. Your shift, you're going to put at 2.666 recurring, but of course that moves it to 2.67 and does 2 decimal places. Width, keep it at 100, don't move it at all because it sounds awful and annoying. Feedback, put on 6.7, and delay on 10 milliseconds. Keep your character on clean because that's how we want it, and for simplicity's sake, keep it on sine this time. Then we've got rather a pointless EQ with a minuscule amount of highs added in, 1 decibel, and a bit of mids at 660, 1 decibel again. And lastly, one more of these. The colour is going to be modulated again, so don't do anything amazing with that yet. And here, put your gain down to -1, because you add extra volume in with the tremolo and frequency shifter and such. So it's just take out a bit to compensate. And the fatness you're going to have at 21%. Right, and then a bit of reverb just for fun. And then that gets you kind of this once you've done all the modulation. Okay, so the modulation. Go into Add Automation. Check your boxes for macro 1 and macro 3. Put your 2 sausage fatteners, make sure you've got it on colour. Okay, and so firstly we're going to start with macro 1, which is the custom, and that's like an extra help along with the performer. So all you need to do here is match this kind of curve. I'll take that thing out of the way. So you've got an upward curve from 50% to 100% there, and then halfway through it drops down to here, which is 62, and back up to 93, and then at the end of the note it drops out again down to 0. I mean, you can imitate the shape. Just to stop we're getting confused, this note lasts for 2 beats at 140 beats per minute, and it's a C. So that's the MIDI sorted out for you. And so just copy that macro across. That's macro 1, which is the kind of position of the performer level. Macro 3 is the pitch, and at the beginning of the note have it at 100%. Halfway through your note have it at 40 or 41, and at the end of the note have it down at 0. And that's the pitch bend you get from it, quite audibly. Then you've got your colours. So the first colour one applies to the first of the 2 sausage fatteners, the one that goes in before the tremolo and the frequency shift and EQ. And for this one, there's no reason why I picked this exact curve. I just put in some random values. But that one's 2755, this one is 9685, this one is 0, this one is 5511. And you can see where they are on this kind of, then the other one, which applies to the second of the 2, which is this one, that one has a bit more of a reasoning behind it. It drops down here, then pings up again for beat 2, and drops down to 0. So the levels on this one are 100%. Here you've got 2440, and then pops up again to 6535, and then drops down to 0 again. And then once you've done all that, that's your modulation complete. And then all you need to do is bounce that down to audio. So, and if I mute that now, this is what you get when you bounce it down to audio. So that sounds pretty much exactly the same as it was, which is good actually. So then all I did is a little bit of extra processing. We had one of these again. This one's colour is at 0, fatness is at 20. Then you've got an equaliser with some of the highs taken out, 50 I think it was, 5540 and 4.3 dB. And then another one of these again, this time colour is at 47 and fatness is at 19. And then that makes it sound like this. So it smudges it through a bit, which I think works well here. And that is the bass kind of section, the mains kind of sound. Then what you do is you're going to duplicate that track and bring it in onto this one. So this is kind of a sub-track. You can barely hear this, I'm just saying. You might not even be able to hear that at all. But that is kind of like a sub-bass, and it's just got some bass boosted several times here. All the trebles have been taken out. A kind of a bit of distortion, not very much at all. I've made it mono by turning this thing down, or nearly mono. And then I just added some kind of limiting on it with this thing, which is also free. as well. This thing's free as well. I mean, most of the stuff I'm using here is free, apart from this and Massive. And then that is your sub bass, and that has no reverb on it. And I'm not going to go into much detail on that because you can't actually hear what I'm doing. It's rather boring for you. So all you need to do really is make it kind of sound like a sub bass by taking out all the trebles with this sort of thing, boosting some of the bass, a bit of distortion, make it mono, and then put it through one of these. That's all you need to do. But where this sound really, I think, sounds really cool is when you put a vocoder on it. And when you put the vocoder, you get this. This lovely squeaky, this thing. And then that is layered over the sub bass and the original to get you that. But actually, all you need to do here is bounce this first bass thing down to audio, okay, and then bring it into Audacity. And when you bring it into Audacity, you get this. So that's the original sound, as you remember. And then you put the vocoder on it. So, in fact, all you need to do is highlight your original bass, put a loop over it so it only covers the ends of the waves. Go share, export song to disk, AAC encoder, call it what you want, put it where you want. And then what you need to do, go into Audacity, which is free again, drag it onto here, and then it pops up here. Of course, here's one I prepared earlier and all that. And once you've got it into here, Command A, Effect, press V to go down to Vocal Remover, and then go below that to Vocoder. Ooh. And this is where all the magic happens. Your distance, I think distance is bandwidth, I'm not even sure. But put that to 82, whatever that means. And then number of bands, have it as 10. Keep that one on 100, these two on 0, and that one on 30. They don't do anything. Then press OK. That's what you get. And that's the squeaky thing we had. That's just OK. And then what you can then do is you can export that again. Go by file export, export it as a WAV, and you can't actually do MP3 because I haven't got the right thing, an AIF if you're on Apple, whatever you want. Export it as whatever you want, save that, and then bring that back into GarageBand or whatever you're using again. And then you get this with it, and then I'll just take off all the effects, put on that, and you get that. Last thing I did onto them was add one of these again, colour at 41, fatness at 13, an equaliser which added in some extra treble and took out some of the mids, and then some very, very high trebles. Then I put yet another one of these. I do like them. That's at 19%, that's at 0. And then because it goes mono when you vocode something, I put on a stereo widener, which is free again. Put your delay on 13.8 and your gain on -6.2. And then that stereo widens it again for you, getting you that, and that does, okay, good. And then last thing I did was a bit more reverb on that, 20% to be precise. And then you have your original bass, which is this one. You've got your sub, which is this one, and your vocoder, which is this one. And all you need to do to get to your nearly final sound is mix them all down at once, next to each other, which... but of course, the levels have been altered slightly. The vocoder is remaining at 0, the sub is at -1.6 decibels, that is, and the bass is at -5.6, yeah, that's the original. And then that gets you the levels that I have here. So, bounce that down to audio, and you get this one. This one is, it's kind of just like a master channel where I did some final touchings up. I took out some of the really highs, I got 10k in because I like 10k. Some mids around 600, put some of them in. That one, bit low down there to give it some bass, and then took out some of the really low bass ones. But that's all I did in terms of EQ. I did one more subtle one of these, colour at 0, fatness at 9. Stereo tool, I actually widened it a bit more. I did mention this one's free, so there's no excuse for not having it. Then lastly, a limiter, and not particularly to make it louder, just to stop it clipping. And this is a W1 limiter, which is, guess what, also free. So please download that too. And then the last thing I did was bounce that down to audio one last time, and there's no effects on top of that one, and so you're finished. And that's it, we're finished. We've done the sound, and we've got this rather cool result. And so, last thing to say, thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel, and really I'll see you next time whenever I get around to making another video. So, goodbye, thanks for watching, enjoy.